as vaccines get rolled out. So I'm personally looking very forward to finally seeing everyone in person and being able to chat before and after meetings um, and just having a bit more of a social aspect to these meetings. Um, but of course, as always, for our monthly meetings, we have a few announcements of upcoming events. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can share those with you. Alrighty. So first and foremost, of course, we have the much anticipated Native Plant Field Day. This is our way of keeping a balance between having our Native Plant Day, which of course usually is a big congregation of everyone in one space. Of course, we can't do that, so now we're having field trips throughout the county. There's 14 field trips in total, but space is there's very few spaces remaining. As of this morning, there were 8 spaces, and I just checked again right before this meeting, and there were 6 spaces left. So if you want to claim one of those spots to one of the remaining field trip locations, um, you would go onto this Eventbrite link. But the easiest way to get on there is to just go to the DCFMPS website and go to the calendar. And then if you go to the March 27th and 28th days on that calendar, you'll find instructions on how to sign up for Native Plant Field Day. So I hope you guys can attend, and we're very much looking forward to that. On April 17th, there's going to be yet another field trip. This one is going to be to Mahogany Hammock in Everglades National Park. And that also coincides with Free Entrance Day to Everglades National Park. So even if you don't get to go on this field trip, but you still want to enjoy the park, just know that it's completely free of charge. Um, I'm not sure who's leading the this field trip, but there should be more information um, now or put in soon on the calendar on the website, but also on the monthly newsletter. On April 27th, we will be having our next monthly meeting, and the speaker is going to be Jeff Washaleski, who will be giving a presentation titled "How to Build a Backyard Paradise." So we hope to see you at that one. The registration for the 40th annual FMPS conference is now open. It's going to run from May 14th through 16th, and it's going to have a variety of speakers, likely different events, and it's going to be a virtual thing. So I think this is the. I'm not sure if that's how they did it last year, or if they ended up canceling, but at least for this year, it's going to be completely online. You can get more information on this website, but you may also have received an email if you are a member with a registration link. And then finally, I would like to give a warm welcome to our new chapter members. We have quite a few of them. Welcome to the chapter to Erica Bonema, Alex Crow, Curtis and Rogers Design Studio, Joanna Faray, Maria Faray, Albert Gomez, Edelman Lopez, Barbara McAdam, Ian McNamara, Christine Pardo, Melissa Tomey, Marlise Urscheller, Shannon Jones, and TJ Morel. And lastly, to Nama Native Landscapes, who have upgraded membership to a business membership. So welcome to everyone. Your support allows us to continue doing what we do. Finally, if you want to learn more about what we do and stay in touch with the different events going on, you can find us at different social media. So we have a Facebook, Instagram, YouTube page, and Twitter. And if you ever want to reach out to us directly, our email is datefmps@gmail.com. So with that said, I can go ahead and introduce the tonight's speaker. So we have Joe Montes de Oca here to talk about all the exploration that he's done in the county. Joe, I always see you find the coolest things out there, and I have no idea how you see them. But just to give you a bit more of a formal introduction, Joe is a lifelong nature lover who has become more and more interested in learning about the seemingly infinite number of organisms of South Florida. Although he teaches Italian and Portuguese as a profession, his students are constantly hearing about, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this, Usalai, Fiori, and Maravillas de Natureza. I know I butchered that. In the fall of 2019, he was lucky enough to pick up a weekend gig working as a field tech in the Hole in the Donut with Steve Woodmansey, learning about one of South Florida's most impressive restoration projects. He spends most of his free time exploring the trails of the Everglades and Big Cypress, and also the local parks and vacant lots of Miami, documenting his finds on iNaturalist.org, a growing citizen science website. So Joe, thanks again for being here, and whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you. I really appreciate having the opportunity to talk to people about this site. I'm just crazy about it. As some of you know, I've posted thousands and thousands of observations on there. And I mean, there are people who have observed more than I have. So I'm not the craziest. There are people that use the site more than I do. But yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity. And there's an event coming up. So this is excellent timing. It's called the City Nature Challenge. It's coming up at the end of April. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that. So I hope, all of you come away from this interested in using iNaturalist and kind of exploring it also on your own, because I'm going to just I'm not going to go too much into tutorial. I just want you all to see how useful the data that goes on there is, and, the reason why I use it so much. So I'll start sharing my screen. I don't think I have the option yet to share. It says host disabled. Participant sharing.
I got you covered. All right, try now.
Okay. Let's see. All right, looks good.
Awesome.
Okay, so and I'll be as people come in, I'll let them in too, since I guess that's okay. So let me go straight to my PowerPoint. So again, it's titled One of a Kind Citizen Science Tool. This is a photo of a really nice milkweed in Big Cypress with a queen butterfly. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the monarch caterpillar, and this is the queen caterpillar on milkweed. So what is iNaturalist? Basically, a lot of people see it as being an app, but I'm always telling everyone that I can, you got to check out the website, because the app, it limits a lot of what you're able to do, the features. And so what iNaturalist does is it helps us to document biodiversity. It gives, that data point to let someone else know, this is what I saw, this is where I saw it, this is when I saw it. It also helps us identify what we find. So any type of organism, doesn't necessarily need to be a plant or an animal. It could be fungi, it could be protozoa, bacteria. There are people who will help you identify those things. Also, how to explore biodiversity with the database, because when you're posting something, it goes onto a public database. And of course, there's also that social aspect where it helps you connect with others about nature. So essentially, you're taking, what you see here, this organism, this is a faithful beauty, also known as an Uncle Sam moth. I know it looks like a butterfly, and you're turning it into this data point where someone can help you identify it if you don't know what it is, and it's on the site and available for others to learn from it. All right, so connecting people. It just makes it easy to engage people and entertain their curiosity, right? We all want to know, hey, what is this? Is it rare? Where else can I find it? Does it migrate? Am I going to see it during only a certain time of year? When is it in bloom? What do the flowers or fruit look like? So, here's an example of a very common lawn weed, Biden's alba. There's a typo there, Spanish needles or beggar's tick. And then this is what the fruit looks like, right? So there are ways to kind of see, hey, I want to see specifically the fruit. I want to see observations of fruit or flowers. And there's so many different ways to explore the data. So providing a way to connect and feel like you're a part of something bigger, right? This website is growing all the time. In fact, a little while ago, I went on just to kind of, prepare my presentation a little more, and the website crashed because there were so many people on it. So the observation numbers are constantly going up, and it's really cool seeing the map get filled in with observations and watching those counts go up. It also gamifies nature. So, if you're competitive there's always that opportunity to get onto the leaderboard. And, you know, you can make that leaderboard whatever you want. It could be, you know, certain type of organism, and you can make your size, you know, your neighborhood, your park. And also there's a leaderboard for identifications, right? If you're helping to identify, then you climb the identifying leaderboard. And of course, all of this is essential to getting people to appreciate what they have around them. Because, you know, a lot of times we think of nature as being something that's, you know, far away and wild, but iNaturalist makes it easier to kind of figure out, hey, you know, what's that little flower? What's that weed that's growing in my yard? Once you put a name to it, that kind of just, you know what it is. It's something that you can connect to a little bit more. And so that can drive a passion towards wanting to protect nature, which is essential, especially in a place like South Florida, where, you know, development is happening all the time. I was just today at a place that I like to birdwatch at a lot. It's the library on Coral Way and around 97th, 94th Avenue. And they just put up a new building and they knocked down a really nice strangler fig to do it. And I'm just like, no, please stop. So, you know, it helps you see, it helps you care more and connect more so that things like that can be prevented down the line. Continuing with the theme of connecting people, this is just a huge list of ways that I've gone little by little, you know, hey, I want to find more organisms. How can I do that? Right. So whether it's recording audio, using a telephoto lens on a camera, beachcombing, fishing, blacklighting, I mean, it's just a huge list and it gets bigger all the time for me. And I'm sure, you know, there are infinite ways to find different organisms. So these are some photos, and it's funny because each one of these photos I've actually linked to the observation. So for example, if I were to click on this one, and I'm going to share this project, this PowerPoint, if anybody needs it. In fact, let me write right now in the chat my email, and please do not hesitate if at any point you have any questions about how iNaturalist works, or you want to understand something better. I mean, I've been using the site so long that I feel like chances are I'll know, but if I don't know, I'll try to get an answer for you. So this is my email. I am an FIU alumnus, although I majored in Portuguese, and I still use my FIU email. So please write it down, save it. You could write iNaturalist guy if you want or something like that. I mean, I'm not the only person, obviously, but I'm really always trying to get more people on the site. So please do not hesitate to email me. But you see, this is that observation, right? So this experience here, where I was with my friend Nico and also Noah, we set up a blacklight in Big Cypress. This is that data point, right? That's a banded sphinx. And, well, this is actually Nico's observation of it. So he knew what it was. And then this person came in and agreed with that identification. All right, I'll talk a little bit more about how everything works. Just gonna keep going through more ways or just other photos, just enjoying nature. And again, each one of these is tied to an observation. So I want to emphasize that, you know, as much as we do enjoy, you know, posting these photos on social media, they could do even more, right? They can help us know this was here on this date. And it's useful. It's very helpful, right? There are not enough scientists in the world to collect data on everything. So that's where getting this crowdsourced data is so helpful, especially for the little obscure things that we don't know that much about. And you'd be surprised how much we do not know. So the really cool thing is, right, when you're uploading on iNaturalist, it organizes everything for you. It does the rest, right? You just put in the data points and it'll put it on the database, and it's all very easy to explore using the website, right? You can do it to a lesser extent on the phone, on the app, but the website is just amazing. I mean, it's kind of how some people like Wikipedia, where you can go on Wikipedia and you'll start clicking around and reading different articles. And, you know, that's what can happen on iNaturalist. You could end up, sometimes I'm reading a news article about some foreign place in the world, like let's say the Mariana Trench or something, and I end up going to the Pacific and I see what observations have been posted there. And, you know, it's wow, that exists. Really, this looks almost like a distant cousin of the thing that I see here in Florida, right? So this is global. It's all over the world. And so I'm going to just show you really quickly how this explore function works. So you can see here, if I were to just go to the website, I'm logged in here and I click here where it says explore, it's going to show me all of the observations that have been posted so far on the planet, right? Obviously, some areas are going to be more sparsely observed. They're going to have less data because it's harder to get there. And again, this is so much data here that the website is a little bit slow. They've had trouble sometimes with the load of people that are on there. So I'm not even gonna wait for it. I'm just gonna type in here Miami. Okay, that way it's not so much data that this is trying to process. So if I'm looking at Miami, this is the county, Miami-Dade County, and so far we have 163,000 observations, right? And this is showing me those observations. Now, a really convenient thing here is right now we're looking at it in map mode. So you can see it says map here. I can click on grid mode to see them in a different way, or list mode. Okay. And pardon me if I go a little bit fast. It's just I have a lot, in this presentation, and I'm trying to get through it. But again, if there's something that you miss, write it down and ask me at the end or through email, and I'd be happy to even go on Zoom just with you and explain things, because that's how much I love the site and I want to share it with other people. All right. So if I click here where it says species, now it's going to organize it. So it's showing me all of the species that have been observed so far in Miami-Dade County, and it's putting them in order from the most observed to the least observed. So this is really convenient for, getting an idea of what might be, something that's more common or less common. Now, there are obviously biases. It doesn't mean that the brown anole really is the most common organism in Miami-Dade County. It's just, people are more likely to photograph them because they are very common, and they see them, and they it's not that hard to get a photo of one, right? They're out there all over the place, and they let you get pretty close, right? Same thing goes for the American alligators, right? If people go to Shark Valley, a lot of visitors come and they post on iNaturalist. Obviously, when they come to Miami, they want to see an alligator. So there are all kinds of biases here, but you can, see, I'm sure if you live in South Florida, a lot of these organisms should look familiar. You've seen them at one point or another. So there is kind of an at a glance, hey, these organisms are more common. Now, you can come over here to where it says species, and you can type in whatever you want, as long as it's some taxa, right? You can type in a genus of a beetle or a family of a plant, or you can type in vertebrates, or I think chordates is what it shows up as. It basically, there are all kinds of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in plants here, and you see I get a few options: kingdom, plantae, phylum, you have subphylum, then there are some random examples of genuses. I'm going to click on vascular plants. So that's not going to include mosses. I'm not an expert, you guys, by the way. I'm just an enthusiast. I really love all this stuff. A lot of what I've learned has been through the internet, or reaching out to botanists or real scientists. But again, this is citizen science, so it's a really great way to learn more. So now, what are we seeing at the top of the list in the most observed plants? We're seeing Biden's alba, right? I'm sure all of you are familiar. You've gotten this on your socks when it turns into the fruit, and other lawn weeds, but also some that aren't lawn weeds, right? Sea grape. A lot of people that come to Miami are on the coast, so they're going to be photographing sea grape. It's all over the coast. Same thing with the red mangrove. But again, this is just us exploring the data, and all of these photos under the species section, they're all just kind of a default photo. If you actually want to see the posts that people have made, you can come over here to the observations, and then click around here. Okay, so that's just a quick at a glance. Again, there are all kinds of options. You can come over here to map. This is a really convenient thing, right? Let's say you live in the South Miami area. You can zoom into South Miami, and then this little orange button that says redo search and map area, it's going to change it so it's only showing me the ones that have been posted within this map area. And if I zoom out, you'll see that all of the observations are going to fall within this orange map. So, if I have any teachers that are watching this, you can tell kids, hey, find out what's in your neighborhood. You zoom into your neighborhood and you can see what people have observed, right? Right now, it's only showing me vascular plants, 502 different species observed in this, pretty urban area. There's some parts here that maybe are wild, some parts of Biscayne. Obviously, you're not going to have so many plants out there. But yeah, this is unlimited. You can zoom wherever you want in the world. Right now, I'm kind of close to Ludlam Glades Park. Click redo search and map area. Obviously, the numbers go down as you get more specific. If I hit the X here, now it's going to show me all of them. So 103 observations posted in this area. But, again, so many different ways to explore the data. And I really recommend clicking around on your own and, getting a feel for how this works, right? I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm familiar with it, but it's just an amazing tool, right? You could also go to filters, and you could play around with some of the filters that are here. You can make it so it's only showing you research grade observations. I'll talk about that a little bit later, or ones that need to be identified, You could put it so that it's only showing you observations from a certain month of the year. So, you know, if you want to see birds that are being seen during October, which is peak fall migration, you can do that and you'll see, you know, birds that have been posted to the site. Okay, although I'm not going to lie, eBird is a much better resource because, you know, birders tend to not photograph so much. But yeah, it's still a great resource for anything that you want to learn about. I have to also give a caveat. It's not perfect, right? Some identifications can be incorrect. So, you know, you kind of have to do a little bit of research and make sure that everything looks good. But that's, you know, just a quick overview of how this works. I encourage you to come onto the website, click explore, type in different parts of the world, you know, go to Colombia and see what people are observing in Colombia, right? 482,000 different observations. Let's see really quick, what are the top observed things in Colombia, right? So birds, tropical kingbird. Let's see, do we have any plants? It looks like we have a little bit of plant blindness, right? A lot of tourists may be going to Colombia, or native Colombians that are focusing more on the vertebrates or the insects. Let's look at some plants really quick. All right, so these are the plants. So 149,000 observation of plants in the entire country of Colombia. And here are some of the top ones. Okay, some of them may, you know, have an issue where I don't know if this is native to Colombia. I mean, it says here IN, which it's invasive, but sometimes some can sneak in here that are cultivated. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but please check this out on your own. You're going to learn a lot and you're going to see how the site works by doing this, by clicking around all over the place and getting used to it. So let me get back to the presentation. And again, on the app, those filters, they're much more limited. Now, if I were to click on one of these species and, you know, click on, there's this other little option to click on, you're going to get to the species page. The species page it has a lot of really cool data, including, as you can see here, right, there's a taxonomy section that gives you the breakdown of that organism. So it'll do it for any organism. If you're only looking at a family, then it'll start, you know, at the family and it'll work its way up to the kingdom of organism that you observe. So let me go really quick. I'm going to look at this one in particular, Erigeron quercifolius, which one of the common names is oak leaf fleabane. So let me click on this and it'll take me to that species page, right? So I also have this set right now up here to Florida. So I hope you can see, you know, this section right here, it says Florida. You can change that. Obviously, you can put North America, you can put Miami, you can put, you know, an entire continent. You can put all kinds of things in there. So for location. And another really cool thing that you can see here is seasonality, right? This plant is one that shows up specifically during spring mostly, right? So there's a big peak in March, right? Right now, if you go walking around South Florida, you'll probably find a patch of this somewhere, as long as it's, you know, kind of not being mowed all the time or something. Maybe you have it in your yard if you're leaving space for things to pop up. I think they prefer a little bit of moisture. So that's another thing to consider. But yeah, very cool being able to see that data right there, right? And this is not because somebody was trying to make this data happen. This is just what, you know, the natural thing that's happening with this flower. It's showing up more obviously in this peak month of March. Okay, here's where you can see the map of the observations of the species. So you can see there's some outliers over here. This one over here, I would bet you that this is probably not correctly identified. So again, the website's not perfect. I don't know the distribution of this flower, this plant in North America, but I doubt that this one is correctly identified, right? It seems like it wouldn't make sense, but these are all things that you can find out by, you know, kind of exploring. If I click on that observation, I can see, hey, this looks like it might be a relative, but it's maybe not exactly the species. Okay, the other thing that you can click on is that taxonomy button. And so there's that breakdown. Okay, if I click on one of these little taxa, I'm going to click right here on the family Asteraceae. So now I went from Erigeron quercifolius to Asteraceae. So now this is showing me all of the observations of Asteraceae in Florida. And you can see, you know, there's kind of a dip in summertime. I'm wondering, there are biases here, obviously, too, right? Could this be not that there aren't so many flowers, Asteraceae, that are, you know, around in summer? Or could it be maybe that there are snowbirds that are not observing things during this time of year? I mean, there are all kinds of questions you can ask. And again, if you're a teacher, these are things that you can, you know, play with. Make your kids ask these questions and try to get that out of them to figure out what's going on here. All right. You can, again, go to taxonomy, you can go to map, and then you'll see all the observations. Obviously, Asteraceae is a huge group of plants, a group of organisms. So it's going to have, I mean, I'm personally, I'm assuming, is Asteraceae found all over the world? It is. Okay. Again, I'm not a botanist. I don't know these things, but you can see that it's not like there are some species that are only found in the New World or in the Old World, so to speak. So this is all things that you can play around with and learn from right on the website. Again, this is definitely not something you can do on the app. So that's why I'm always telling people, please check the website out. That's where you can really see some of the magic of this data that's being put on the site. All right, so that's the species page. Again, please do not hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions about how to apply this in a classroom. I'm a Portuguese and Italian teacher, so I have so many ideas and I can't use this with my students. So, every once in a while when I make them do a project on, Brazil, and I split up the regions of Brazil or the states, I try to get them to use iNaturalist, and I'll tell them, okay, tell me what are the most observed organisms and how do you say it in Portuguese, things like that. But obviously the opportunities for a science teacher are incredible with this site. So let's keep going. All right, so here are just 3 little examples of how to use it for analyzing data, right? Invasive species expanding range, right? Having all of these people, these nature troops out, seeing these organisms, especially here in Miami, we have so many invasive species, right? Whether it's these reptiles like that agama that I'm sure some of you have noticed popping up in the last, 5 years and spreading. You can see that on iNaturalist, and it's incredible having these people observing it, right? You could have a researcher, but that researcher is obviously limited. They can't, go all over Florida and check to see where it is. But if you have people looking out for it, even if they're not looking out for it on purpose, they're still putting the data on the site. So it's awesome. Okay, documenting blooms out of season. Sometimes you can annotate an observation and mark it as being in flower. So that's an interesting thing, especially, with climate change, right? So this data is going to be there if it's really happening. And also unexpected species associations. Now I have to use this example, and again, I'm sorry to take a swipe at my my alma mater at FIU, but the nature preserve, they took off a big piece of it. This was maybe, I don't know if it was, I don't even remember when it was that it happened. It was really unfortunate, but I was an FIU student before they took down that big piece of the preserve, and obviously they had people that were, using iNaturalist back then. So this is really interesting. I'm going to show you the map here that shows FIU. Let me zoom in on it over here. And you'll notice there are a ton of observations that are over those fields. Now, if you click on one of these observations, you'll see that it doesn't show that AstroTurf field. Oh, look, I just clicked on a bird that I observed, right? That's one of the only times, well, I've seen clay-colored sparrows a few times, but maybe less than 10 times in my life. And one of the times was there, that habitat no longer exists, right? I have not seen them at FIU since. And, this is just something that we could look at and we could say, hey, there used to be something here. And there was a place for, animals, insects, plants to thrive. And it's not there anymore, right? So this over time, as more and more stuff gets developed, you can see kind of that historical picture of what was there, right? And you know what? If you have old photos and you remember where you took that photo, you can still post those old photos. So I'm looking at some of you that have been into nature your whole life. If you have photos from, the 90s or from the 80s, or from whatever year, you can still post them to iNaturalist. And obviously getting those bits of data are very useful for comparing to what we're getting now. So keep that in mind. All right, let's get back to the presentation. So projects, there are a few different types of projects on iNaturalist. Okay, they're collection, traditional, and umbrella projects. Instead of kind of explaining it here, I'll just give you some examples. These are 4 different projects on iNaturalist. 3 of them I created, 1 of them I did not create, and the one that one's huge, the North American Animal Tracks database, right? I'm talking about this one in the top left corner. I'm just going to open it up really quick to show you how this one works, right? The way it works is you post an observation. If you know that you're seeing scat or if you're seeing tracks, you can post them to this project and you're making it a lot easier for someone to identify it, right? If you just post it to the site and you don't add it to this project, it might take a little bit longer because there are people that are using this project and they're specifically trying to find observations that show animal sign, right? So again, it says North American. So the ones that are showing up that are not in North America, those users weren't really following the rules. Again, this is used by everyone, so sometimes mistakes happen. But here, that's the spread of observations, and we can take a quick peek at some of these observations, right? They're all going to show scat or sign. Bird feathers also count as sign, but you can learn a lot by just, if you want to look specifically only at black bear tracks or scat, you can click black bear and see the ones that are posted to the site, and you can start getting a pretty decent idea. Look, this one was apparently clawing on some pole. You can get a pretty good idea of what the tracks look like. Now, I have to say again, as a caveat, the data is not perfect. There may be someone might identify a raccoon track as a bear, but there's kind of a system to try to prevent that from, being on across the data. There are ways, there are other people that are confirming and checking people's work. So, although it's not perfect, there are things to try to make it better, right? All right, so that's one project, right? An awesome project. If you've taken photos of something and you want to know, hey, what did I see? And you never got an answer, you can add it to that project and see if you can get some help identifying it. Okay, I'm going to show you the caterpillars project now. And this is what's called a collection project. So what it does is if an observation meets the parameters that I set when I created this project, it automatically is going to fall into it. Okay, and I have to show you a quick comparison. I made this project last year. I took this screenshot. You can see it says 6,600 observations. This was 1 year ago that I took this screenshot, right? You see that number, 300 different species. Now let's compare it to right now. Now we have 13,000, so that's more than doubled, and 400 different species of caterpillar that have been, posted to this project, right? So you can see some of the data. If I come over here and I click on species, it'll show me, just like we saw before, it organizes it from most observed to least observed. So it's a really cool way to see, in Florida, these are some of the more commonly observed caterpillars. Okay, now I'm going to show you one more thing here. I'm going to try not to, I can go into any of these holes and never come out. So I'm sorry if I'm going to try not to run out of time here with my presentation, but let me just show you. I'm going to do that same thing that I showed you right now. It's only showing me caterpillars of Florida, the ones that meet those parameters, that the observation is of a lepidopteran, right? So a butterfly or a moth, and it's been annotated to be in the larval stage. Okay, and you can see there aren't going to be any outside of Florida because these are not being manually added. They're all, they're meeting the parameters that I set for the project. So let's zoom into Miami here, and now I'm going to set it so it's not showing me all of these in Florida. Again, I could use that very useful redo search and map area. And I mean, if you're going to be in a certain part of the Everglades, you can zoom into that certain part of the Everglades and kind of get an idea. During this time of year, I might see this caterpillar. And then you do. And it's such a nice feeling. It's so, interesting, kind of connecting, and it's just great. So now I'm going to click on species, and there they are being organized from most observed to least observed. Now, I wonder if some of these monarchs are possibly captive cultivated, right? People buy the eggs and they put them on the plants. That's possible that some are there. So maybe that's not 100% accurate that monarchs really are the most commonly observed. People have a lot of milkweed in their yard, so there can be some biases to consider there. But this one here, the tussock moth, you guys got to look out for this one if you've never seen it. The hairs will irritate you. They'll irritate your skin. This is what they look like. These are the caterpillars that have been observed and put into this project, right? Those hairs will get you. It happened to me once, and I had a irritated skin for, I don't know, like a month. And maybe some of you also saw the IO moth. That was one that a lot of people are familiar with because that bright green color, those little spikes. Hopefully you've never had a run-in with one, because I've heard these are really bad. I've never been stung, but there are all the observations that have been posted of the IO moth. All right, so those are just two projects. These are some other ones. This one is what's called an umbrella project, which compares different places. And I see that I have Andrew Kearns. I'm not sure if that's how to pronounce. Yeah, hello. I love the work that you've done with Jose Marti. And you can see that work right here in this project. This is a project that I created where I literally created polygons for every single high school in Miami-Dade County. That's how, you know, obsessed with this site I am. I wanted to see which high schools are observing the most, right? And you can see that Jose Marti Mast 6 through 12 Academy has the most observations, 381. If you click on observers, there Terra actually has more observers, but it's, and then species. So here's what's going on with species, you guys. Southwest High School is my school. So I've done bio blitzes by myself in my school a bunch of times. And, you know, I've developed an eye. So I have 146 species. Some of them are my students too. So you can say, oh, it's cheating. It's not the students doing it. But yeah, this is a really cool little project. And you can see the polygons here, right? So this is kind of to compare different schools. Let me see if I can zoom in. And you can see all the polygons, right, of all the different high schools. So, you know, teachers out there, encourage your students to help you put your school on the map and compete with other schools and, you know, post the most observations or the most species. You know, it's a fun thing. I haven't really tried to get this to spread so much in Miami-Dade County public schools, but it's a really cool way to do that. Okay. Done talking about the projects. There are all kinds of opportunities with the projects. You can create one yourself, or you can find one to add observations to. All right, observation fields. This is a whole other animal. Really, really cool stuff here. The visited flower of observation field. I did not create that observation field. I found it and I sort of adopted it, right? I just thought it was particularly cool, and I have started adding this observation field to tons of observations, and I've, you know, a few people have joined me in doing this. So let me show you how much data we have right now for Biden's alba. Again, very common lawn weed. Let's see, is this not opening? There we go. All right, let's see. All of these observations show Biden's alba in Florida being visited by something, okay? Whether it's a butterfly or a fly, right? A lot of people don't think of flies and beetles as pollinators. And, you know, we don't know if they really are pollinating, but they're definitely visiting the flower in all of these photos. So if you look out for this plant, right, you can see possibly, you know, depending on what part of Florida you're in, any number of these species visiting, right? This one right here, Poe's furrow bee, that's a native bee down here. So look out for that one. It's a little tiny bee. If you've seen a little bee visiting some flowers in like kind of a suburban area, not too wild of an area, it might be that one. The very common bee down here that a lot of people don't know even exist, but, you know, using iNaturalist, you can learn about all that stuff. So all of these, again, these are all default photos. So don't say, hey, wait a minute, that's not visiting Biden's alba. These are just default photos. When I click on species, that shows me, you know, that breakdown from most observed to least observed, right? So you can see all of that here. And again, same thing. I can come over here, go to the map, zoom in on Miami, and there will be a difference, right? The species numbers are going to go down as they get more specific, but all of this is possible using this website. Okay. So I hope you're starting to think, well, this guy's not that crazy. Now I understand why he has, you know, 30,000 observations on here, because I really feel like I'm helping people learn, right? Maybe not yet. Maybe it's not that appreciated yet because people aren't on there. But as more and more people use the site, you know, I know that the data is going to be helpful to someone, even if it's just to spark some interest in a kid, you know, that we got to get people interested in nature, everyone. Okay. Although we don't want to love nature to death either. So be careful. Okay, the other observation, the other thing that I can talk about here are annotations. These are standardized, and I'm not really showing you how to add all of this stuff. I just want you to know that it's there. Okay, if you have particular questions, I'll help you out. But, you know, you can mark a plant, for example, as being in fruit, and then you could see that data on this little chart that shows up, right? So I'm clicking here on Brazilian pepper, and you can see as I click on Brazilian pepper, right, there's the seasonality. Right? This is showing when it's been observed the most. And you can see a big spike in observations going towards November and December. That could be a bias towards, hey, look at these red fruit. What is this plant? Right? And so people are more likely to observe it. And so that already kind of gives you an idea. Hey, something's happening in December. Maybe it's because the plant is really there and it's not there in summer, or it could be people are noticing it more. Okay. And if I click here on plant phenology, that's what I was telling you about, where you see all of these blue ones have been annotated to say this is fruiting. Okay, you can see right there, it says 149 observations. Now, there are 321 that have not been annotated, but I would bet that the majority of them are either in fruit or, you know, I think by then it's not really flowering anymore. I mean, it could depend. Okay, but again, opportunities to look at that data and annotate it and curate it and make it more useful. Okay, so let's that's how those things work. Really cool little things that you could do with your observations. And let's see what else we got here. So when you post something to iNaturalist, it's going to go onto the database, right? As long as it includes photo or audio, it has to have media. So once it's there, someone else can find your observation. They can add an identification. They can add a comment. They can add a little heart or a fave. They could rate your observation's quality. So, you know, if you post something and it looks like, that doesn't look like South Florida, there's something wrong, you can mark it. You could put a little thumbs down to say, hey, this doesn't look like it's the correct location. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And you could also add your observation to a project. You can add those annotations or observation fields or tags, which, you know, is what I just talked about. All right, uploads. Now, this is what I tell people all the time. They, you know, some people ask me, how do you post so many observations? Like, is that all you do? Is that your job? And I tell them, no, it's actually not that hard if you do it through the computer, right? Doing it through the app, on the other hand, it's a lot slower. So yes, the app may be better for posting a few quick observations on the spot, but I'm usually posting tons of observations when I'm out and about. So I do not use the app. If I use the app, I would go crazy. It would take me way too long to post all my observations. So what I do is I go to iNaturalist.org, and I'm going to show you really quick how I post them really quick on the site. So I'm just going to come over here to the home page, right? Let me start closing some of these tabs. My students are always like, Mister, why do you have so many tabs open? Because, you know, I'm using the Zoom or whatever with them. So you click over here where it says upload up in the top corner, and this is your default opportunity to add observations. So you notice it says drag and drop some photos. It says choose files. I'm just going to drag and drop some photos. So this is a little folder of photos that I have specifically to show you. I have not posted these yet. So I'm going to grab all of them, and I'm just going to dump them in here just like that, right? I'm grabbing my photos. You need to be familiar with how to get your photos from your phone or your camera onto your computer, right? And notice the names. Some of these are from my DSLR camera, right? The bigger camera, and some of them are with my phone, because I do post a ton of observations just using my phone camera, nothing special. Okay, so here they are all popping up. Notice it says submit 27 observations. Now there aren't actually 27 observations that I should post here, because some of the photos are just different angles of the same thing. So what you can do is you can drag and drop, right? This is a really cool little lobelia plant. And so these 3 photos are all the same thing. So I'm dragging, I'm dropping them, and you're seeing how my observation count is going down, because, you know, here's that erigeron I talked to you about earlier. This is the leaves, so I'm going to add them there. This is phyla. This is vicia, right? I'm just saying a bunch of plant names, so I'm sorry if it sounds like, you know, I'm just talking a different language here. All right, do any of these other ones are okay? I got a yellow rumped warbler here. These are all different angles, right? I thought this one was interesting because it's starting to get that black marking on its face to show, you know, it's getting closer to springtime. And then I also have this Buchnera, and I remember these are the leaves of the Buchnera. So I went from 27 to 20, right? I have a few that have 3 or 4 photos or 2 photos. There's a little raccoon, you can see its tail, right? And a lot of these have the location already added to them, right? Because I took them with my phone and I made sure to have my location services on, so you can see how they all have the location, right? This is, I live, you know, nearby here in Fontainebleau. I kind of went birding and just trying to post some observations so you can see where I was, where I saw these things. And then when I click here on species name, I can type in the name of what I saw. Now it's gonna, you see it says loading suggestions. So what is it suggesting to me? The genus Hydrocaudal. And I can say that it is absolutely correct. This is Hydrocaudal. I'm familiar with this plant. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. You can see I got a little inflorescence here, these little white flowers. And I don't know how to identify this one super well. I have a feeling, because it's the main one that I've observed the most, that it's Hydrocaudal umbellata. I know that means that the flower is in an umbel, but I'm just going to be conservative here. And I always recommend being conservative with your observations if you're not sure, because, you know, you don't want somebody to come in and confirm what you observed and what you identified when you could be wrong. So it's better to be conservative, right? If it's making a bunch of suggestions, centella is here. I know it's not centella. I'm just going to put Hydrocaudal, and someone hopefully will come along and identify it for me, right? You could also do research right here on the site to try to, make your own comparisons. I'm not going to go into that because, again, my presentation will go on forever. Now this little plant is super cool. I for some reason, I'm going to show you really quick where it's been observed, right? I'm going to take you to that species page that I showed you before with the erigeron, with that sunflower. So let's look at that really quick. Let's look at the range map. I'm going to scroll down here to the map and check this little plant out. Okay, it's called Lobelia fiana. Or again, my pronunciation of some of these things, please don't laugh too hard at how I'm pronouncing them. I don't know. Look at the observations. All these little red markings are all kind of in, other parts of Florida. So what's going on here in Miami-Dade County that there aren't really any observations? Does it mean it's not there? Of course not. Just people haven't observed it yet, or maybe it's really not there. I don't know. But I found this species not that long ago in this little, wet area right next to the palmetto, just to highlight how nature finds a way. This is a near endemic species. It's only found in like maybe one or two adjacent counties in Georgia, otherwise only in Florida. And this is the Palmetto Expressway. This is, Flagler. And this is where I'm walking around trying to find different organisms, right? And I see a bunch of really cool native plants here. So again, I'm trying to encourage you all to go out even into these little spots that you ignore and see what you can find, because you're going to be impressed, right? So these are the only observations so far on iNaturalist of the species, right? If I want to find out where else can I find it, that's where iNaturalist can be kind of a unique thing. I don't know where else I can find it. I mean, you could look in a field guide and there might be a general description of the habitat it likes, but it's just so great putting this data out there for people to say, well, look at that, in this little crummy bit of, disturbed wet, you can see how it's kind of darker here. This area floods, it likes water. Okay. And the one that I'm going to post right now was actually over here next to this little lake. So I was actually really excited to discover this little population of this plant somewhere else, because I was wondering, wow, can I find it anywhere else? And the other day I went out and found it, right? I know that this is this species and it's not Lobelia glandulosa. So I can go and add that observation, that identification. Now, if I do this for all my observations, it's going to take too long, but this is all very quick. You can add it to a project right over here on the left. So you can see I can add it to all these different projects. If there's something wrong with my data, if I see that, let's say the location looks wrong, which actually it does look wrong, sometimes my phone jumps me away to some other point. I know that I observed this right over here. So I'm just going to click over here. And now, you can see this is where I observed just a few plants really quick. I just kind of went snap, snap, snap. And that's how I get those big numbers of observations, right? It really isn't that hard. It doesn't take that long. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of some of these observations, the ones that I know weren't there. That way I could actually post them and you can see how they pop up on the site. Okay, this is Erigeron quercifolius. So I'm just going to type that in really quick. Notice it's giving me this one, but that's not the one I want. So I'm going to click here. This is Phyllonautoflora, very, very common lawnweed. If you're not familiar with it, you got to look around. You'll find it. This is Vicia. Is it Vicia and acudifolia, right? There it is. Four-leaf vetch. And this is Buchnera. Okay, and again, a lot of this I've learned just by posting to iNaturalist and people helping me out. I also work in the hole in the donut with Steve Woodmansey, so he's also taught me a lot of what I know. And with this one, I'm just going to leave it at genus, because there's this thing where is it Buchnera floridana or is it Buchnera americana? I'm just going to leave it for the people that know more than I do. And that's it. I'm going to hit submit here. And I just posted 6 observations, pretty quickly. So if you were to do that on the app, you'd have to go one by one, posting each one by one, which is fine when you're learning. But if you really want to get into it, the website is, you got to go to the website. So I just posted those observations. Here they are. If I come over here and I type in Miami-Dade in this little search, let me click view observations. I'm going to see my observations probably towards the top because I just posted them. I think this is just loading a little bit slow. Let me search specifically here. And they should be towards the top. There they are, right? So this is showing me, look, somebody posted a bluegill earlier, right? Okay, let me just identify this really quick. Sorry, I can't help it. I know this is that agama that is popping up all over the place. So it's Peter's rock agama. And I'm going to show you what it's like to identify, in mass, do it in bulk in a second. But I'm just adding this quick identification. So I'm helping this person out to know, what this little lizard is. This is probably a female or a juvenile. So the males are the ones that have the red head. All right. So let's look at the distribution map really quick of the species. Again, I'm sorry I'm jumping around so much. So hope you're sticking with me here. This is where it's been observed. If I go back 5 years, I'm sure it hasn't been observed that far north. They have spread. These little lizards have spread, this little invasive species. All right. So that's how you upload quickly. Now, if you're doing it through your phone, this is what it looks like on Android and iPhone. So, you have these options to type what you saw. See how it looks on both. It shows you the date and time. Please be careful, about the date. Sometimes we post pictures and our camera is not set to the right time. So try to, set your phone to the right time, your camera to the right time, and, check your work when you're posting. Make sure it looks good. There's the location. Now, this thing right here is super important. I'm going to talk a little bit about captive cultivated later, but you have that option right here to check it off. If you want to post, a photo of your milkweeds, your tropical milkweeds that you planted, or maybe that rat tail porterweed plant, make sure to please mark it as captive cultivated so that it doesn't appear to be a wild plant when it isn't a wild plant. All right, now I'm going to give you a quick look at what it looks like to identify things in mass, just to give you an idea of, what it looks like. Hey, I'm posting something. What does it look like for the people who are identifying for me? So let me go back here to the site, and I'm going to just type in again, Miami-Dade, right? Miami-Dade County. iNaturalist is all about the drop down, right? You always have to, it'll pop something up and you have to click on what pops up. So keep that in mind. I'm going to hit view observations. And now if I click here where it says filters, I can click on identify. You could also click on this identify button up here, but I personally like doing it this way better just because it's already kind of starting me off on a smaller group of organisms. And I'm going to identify some things really quick. Okay. These have just been posted. This was posted 13 minutes ago, right? And I don't know what this is. All I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to mark it as a larva. Now that puts it into that caterpillar project where maybe some people that like caterpillars, go in and they spend time identifying caterpillars. But I don't know what species this is. So I'm going to skip it. This is a bluegill. I don't have a lot of expertise in fish. I'm going to skip it, right? I'm using my keyboard right now. I'm just pressing right on the arrow key. But if you like using your mouse more, you can click this little arrow to the right. Brown rat, again, I don't know. I know that this is a gray wall jumping spider. I've seen these a bunch of times. I'm very familiar with them. I'm sure you're familiar with them too if you live in South Florida. They really do like hanging out on the walls, right? So I'm going to hit agree here, right? Another thing I could do is press A on my keyboard. So just to emphasize how quickly you could add identifications, I'm just, this is like bang, next one, bang, next one, bang, next one. Oh, that's an interesting little lady beetle. I have no idea what it is. I'm going to add a fave. That way I can kind of follow it because I'm curious what it is. I'm never seen that one, right? That's the beauty of the site. I'm telling you, I spent hours here and I've been doing this for a super long time, but there are so many things that I don't know about. So I'm constantly trying to learn more. This is definitely St. Andrew's cotton saner. So I'm going to hit agree over here. Okay. And I could also come over here to annotations and I can mark these as adults because I know that this is the adult version of this insect. All right. So this is kind of what it looks like, right? This person identified this as plants. Geez, I'm putting myself on the spot here. I think this is green buttonwood, but again, the coastal stuff, I don't live too close to the coast. I don't spend enough time. So I'm just going to leave this for someone else that knows more. I do know that it's a type of dicot. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of classifying this so that it doesn't show up with like the mosses, and other things. If there's someone that identifies mosses, I don't want them, wasting their time looking at this under plants because this is definitely a type of dicot, right? That's a class of organisms. So let me give you a quick look at how that works. This is like that species page, or the taxa page for dicots. And you can see the taxonomy, how that breaks down, right? A lot of the vascular plants that we see are either dicots or monocots. So a lot of what I do, a lot of my identifications are just saying, okay, I know this is a dicot. I can tell it's not a monocot, right? So if I identify one of your observations as dicot or monocot, I'm just trying to make it slightly more specific. All right, this one kind of has a full eye ring. This one could be a crested anole. Well, they're not really in Miami Beach. I'm going to leave. I'm not going to, sometimes the photos are a little bit tough to work with, right? So you can always skip observations. All right, that looks like a boat-tailed grackle. So you could click over here where it says add ID, or you could press on your keyboard I and the letter I for identification and type in here boat-tailed grackle. Click on that, save, and now that was identified. So this user is going to know, oh, I saw a boat-tailed grackle, right? Although again, I could be making a mistake. Maybe it's a common grackle, right? I think a common grackle would have the light eye. This one doesn't show it, and the shape looks right. It looks nice and slender, but that's what it looks like to identify observations. Now, if I only want to identify plants, I can come over here and type in plants. Okay. If I only want to identify milkweeds, I can come over here and type in milkweeds. Right? There are so many different ways. It's almost infinite, right? I'm not going to say it's infinite. Not a whole lot of observations, maybe. Not sure what's going on here. Oh, there just aren't many that are in needs ID because, a lot of people identify the milkweeds. So that's how this works. Look, I'm going to drop in really quick just to say this is in fruit, right? So I'm going to mark this as being in fruit, just to add one more little data point for this milkweed being in fruit. Okay. Let me just put in asterisks so it's not such a huge or such a small amount of observations. So, you can see what that looks like. I can come over here and put agree, but all right, let me move on because I don't want to take too long. Okay, this is a rig run, but I can't help it. Like I want to identify some things. This is Biden's alba. You see how this works, right? You can just click agree, or you could open it up and look more carefully at it. So I'm going to close that out, close this out. Let's go back to the presentation. All right, so let me tell you some best practices for uploading. All right, very important to focus on wild organisms. Posts of your pet parakeet or your pet dog, or basically your garden plants. They're not really adding a whole lot. There are times where they can be useful, but in general, you want to focus on wild organisms. Okay. You also want to try to make it obvious that you have a target species. So a photo of like a landscape, unless it's you could see that it's all sawgrass or something, it's not really going to be as helpful as one that shows you're focusing on one organism. Including an initial identification, very important. So if you have no idea what you saw, but you do have at least the idea that it's a type of plant, you could add an identification that just says plants, because there are many people who, like I just showed you, focus on one taxa that they're most comfortable with, right? I feel like I'm more or less a jack of all trades, emphasis on master of none, because I'm not a master of anything. But I do spend a lot of time focusing on South Florida. So a lot of times I just look at everything, right? I don't focus on one specific thing. But a botanist, right, who maybe doesn't know their insects so well or their fish, they're going to look at observations of plants and they're going to do what they can to help the community with plant identifications. So if you don't add that initial identification, your observation is going to be floating in the unknown, right? And if somebody doesn't add that initial, hey, this is a plant, then those plant identifiers are not going to see it and they're not going to help you out. So keep that in mind to always post something with an initial identification. Okay. If you have no idea what it is, if you're like, I don't know if this is a fungi, I don't know if this is a bacteria or a plant, then fine, you can leave it as unknown, but do your best, right? All right, cropping images. Sometimes we post a picture of like a little insect and it's like, not taking up a lot of the frame. If you can crop the image, it helps a lot. Recording audio is also very helpful. Checking back on your notifications, right? You can see there's always going to be like a little notification thing, whether on the website or the app. Don't you want to know what people are saying about your observation? So it's good to check on that and maybe action the observation. If somebody tells you, hey, can you mark this as this? Did you got the location right? You want to do all that stuff. And another thing that I really need to say is do not agree with identifications willy-nilly, right? If you don't have the expertise to say this is, this type of bird, then don't just agree with the identification, because what's going to happen is it's going to move to research grade, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about that more, but what I'm trying to say is that you don't want to add an identification unless you really feel comfortable, without any sort of bias, being able to say, yes, I know what this is. So please, I know you may be tempted to say, oh, thank you for identifying what I saw. I'm going to agree with your identification. You don't want to do that because you're taking the opportunity away from, your observation to be identified by, another person that is looking at it without a bias, right? So keep that in mind. If you could post multiple images of the same, what you saw, for example, plants, get a photo of the flowers, the leaves, the leaf arrangement, the stem, and put them all together in that one observation. And, there are a bunch of different ways to try to make it easier for people to identify what you find. Okay. Here's some quick examples of best practices. And again, multiple images showing this Baldwin's milkwort. We're cropping the photo so that, this little grasshopper takes up more of the frame, is easier to identify. Here's some audio, right? A lot of people don't think, hey, let me upload some audio. Okay, I have to show this quick observation. It has some audio in it. I'm assuming you all will be able to hear this. This is an eastern narrow-mouthed toad, really cool little amphibian. I'm assuming everyone can hear it, right? Let's see. It sounds like, right? Can anybody, unmute really quick and tell me you can hear it, just so I know you're hearing it? Anyone?
Yep.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you. So this is the first time that I ever heard this, right? This was May 17th, 2018. I posted it. I had no idea what it was. I wrote that it was an insect because I didn't know it was an amphibian. I even looked through frog calls, right? You can see my notes here saying, I'm assuming it's a cricket grasshopper. Well, apparently I didn't do a good job listening through frog calls because this person came in and said eastern narrow-mouthed toad, right? And then I checked that and I was like, oh, wow, that really is what it was. And, I kind of added a little comment there. And then this other person, notice I did not agree with the identification because I don't have that expertise to say this is an eastern narrow-mouthed toad and not something else. I mean, a second ago, I thought it was an insect, right? So I let this other person come in and say eastern narrow-mouthed toad. Again, check out where they've been observed so far. You can see their distribution all over the Southeast, right? So now I know, hey, look, these are found all throughout the Southeast. If I go to Georgia, I might hear this little toad. They're kind of like toads. They're kind of like something else. They're in their own something. All right, let's keep going. Things to avoid, right? So I already mentioned you want to avoid pets, landscape plants. Don't post photos you didn't take yourself. So, if you see a picture of something and you want to know what it is, I mean, you're not really supposed to do that. It should really only be your own photos. If you're posting it for a friend, you can, that's acceptable. Although it's always better to try to get them on the site too. And something to watch out for, you do not want to post a bunch of different organisms under one observation. So this person had posted, these are all different plants, and they posted as one observation. So you got to be careful, you got to get used to how the app works and, try to avoid doing that. And also, you don't want to post 10 different observations of whatever you saw as different observations if it was just one of them. So, that again comes with practice and getting used to how everything works. So there are 3 different quality grades on iNaturalist. I'm only going to talk about this for a second. I'm not exactly sure how much time I have. I don't know if Brian, is it until 9 p.m. that I have?
Yeah, we usually cap it
I know
at,
I gotta
at
leave.
9, so
Okay, so I should leave time for questions before 9.
sounds good.
Okay, great. So the casual observations, they're the ones that, either have something wrong or they have like, a captive or cultivated plant or something. The needs ID ones, they're in a stage where they haven't been confirmed yet. And then the research grade essentially is, it's been confirmed. Okay. So look at what I mentioned here. Your general goal is to try to get the observation to research grade, but don't try to force that, right? Again, by adding an agreeing identification, you might push it to research grade, but it's kind of like, it's like a hollow research grade. It's like it shouldn't really be there, right? You got to let somebody else that maybe has the expertise to confirm it do that, right? And I showed you how I did that with the frog, and somebody came in and helped me out. Okay. And also sometimes, observations get pushed through the research grade and they're not actually research grade, or there's something wrong with them, right? So these are the casual observations. These are some things that can cause them to be marked as casual if they're marked as the date being inaccurate, location being inaccurate, right? So again, I've seen, unfortunately, some students that they have to do this as an assignment. They take photos from the internet of some, crazy looking Amazon bird of paradise, or those are in Papua New Guinea, and they post that for Miami. I see that, I'm like, wait, that's not here in Miami. So that I put a little thumbs down for location is accurate, and then it gets pushed to casual grade, right? And nobody's really using casual grade observations to learn anything because they're kind of like the ones that aren't so helpful. Okay. So let's keep going here, right? These are some examples of casual observations. This is in a fish tank, and this is a cultivated plant. And the data quality assessment. So this is what I was talking about, where you can kind of give something a thumbs down. And I do this a lot. A lot of people that are new to iNaturalist, right? They're very enthusiastic and they want to observe things. Maybe they don't know what's wild and not wild. That's, of course, it takes a little bit of practice to start getting an eye for what is a wild plant or, well, I mean, with organisms, usually it's not that hard to tell, or not with vertebrates, with animals, but with plants, it can be very tricky. So a lot of times I'm doing this. I'm marking them as not being wild so that they're not taking up the time of people who are trying to identify plants that are wild, right? I don't know if there's anything else I should go over here. That's more or less, you know, a good at a glance idea of how this works, right? To mark something as casual grade. So these needs ID observations, here are some examples. They may or may not have an ID yet. So some of them may be completely marked as unknown and they're in the needs ID. Some of them may have already been identified to species. So let me show you this other really cool plant. It's, I think it's Boltonia diffusa. I don't know if I'm remembering that right. Small head doll's daisy. Yeah, Boltonia diffusa. When I found this little flower, I was like, oh, this looks kind of weird. I wonder what it is. So I posted it. All I could say about it from, you know, my own understanding of plants was that it was something in the Asteraceae. I don't even know how to pronounce that, in that tribe. So I posted it as such. And then Jay Horn, who's a botanist, he came in and identified it as Boltonia diffusa. Okay. And, you know, I posted a bunch of photos because I was really hoping that someone would be able to identify it, right? And you're going to notice a lot of the photos that I post on iNaturalist include my hands. So it's not because I'm trying to be a hand model. It's just, it helps the camera sometimes focus on what you're trying to photograph. And it also gives a little bit of contrast sometimes. So, you know, if I wouldn't have my hand in that photo, it would kind of just look, you know, it would be blending in. It'd be a little bit harder to see the detail. So that's another little tip for posting photos. It helps your camera focus on whatever you're taking a picture of. Right. And let me show you really quick where this one's been observed. You know, again, this is kind of like a little outlier here. To me, it's incredible that this little plant is surviving here when obviously it likes the big cypress, right? What does that tell us about where this plant wants to be? Okay. And you can see little patches of populations all over Florida here. And you can see that it's also kind of like a southeastern, moving up a little bit to the northeast. But yeah, really, really cool being able to contribute this data. I mean, I'm so happy that I found this little plant and that I found out what it was. And I had actually observed it before in the big cypress, but only once. So I wasn't really very familiar with it. Okay. So it's a needs ID, right? You can see it's a needs ID. There's a little explanation of that as well. If someone were to come in and say, yes, this is Boltonia diffusa, it would go to research grade. In fact, just to show you, if I click agree right here, you're going to see it's going to go to research grade, right? It might take a second to load. Come on, there you go, research grade, right? But I just told you don't do that, right? So I'm gonna withdraw my identification because I do not have the expertise to say this is Boltonia diffusa and not Boltonia something else, right? Because I don't know whether Boltonias are out there. And now, if I want to do the research, I can come over here, Boltonia, and I could put Florida Plant Atlas and get a quick idea of what other Boltonias are out there, right? There's also Boltonia asteroides, Apalachicolensis, that's probably way up in the panhandle. And what if I click Boltonia asteroides? Well, that one's not found in Dade, at least it's not known to be. It's not been vouched for. Apalachicolensis, there it is up in the panhandle. So Boltonia is the only one down here. But again, I didn't even know it was Boltonia. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, you want to be careful with how you just agree to identifications. I rather this be needs ID for as long as it takes for another person that's on Jay Horn's level to come in and say, yeah, I can tell that that's Boltonia diffusa. Or, you know, if you want to take the time to key it out and really, you know, see if you can come to that conclusion independently without bias, then by all means, right? I'm not saying you're not allowed to agree, but just don't do it like, you know, with that trigger finger is what I'm trying to say. All right. So that's how needs ID works. And let's see what else we got here. These are just a couple other needs ID ones. This one is actually marked as unknown. This is something I saw out on Westlake when I went out there in January for a little paddle. And I actually have this one marked as state of matter life. I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's a type of algae. I don't know if it's a tunicate, right? I'm sure some of you have heard of a tunicate. This is this very bizarre organism that not many people know about. I don't know what it is, right? And I added a little note. Here's another photo of it, just saying it was on fallen buttonwood, right? There's a lot of fallen buttonwood in Westlake. Let me show you where the Westlake is over here, right? This is where I observed it. So I'm happy just sitting there, leaving it for somebody to come in and identify it, because I post so many things that, you know, if I were to go in and research each and every single one across all of the taxa, you know, my brain can't hold all that information, and also, you know, the languages that I need to teach students. So a lot of times I just leave it to the experts. If anybody wants to come along, you know, maybe 3 years from now, someone will say, oh, this is, you know, this species. And oh, great, now I know what it is. But it's up to you how much time and effort you want to put into trying to figure it out on your own, right? There are other sources besides iNaturalist that, you know, in many cases are way, way better, that'll help you out. All right, so let's move on to research grade. So this means that there's a majority or consensus agreement on the ID, at least to the genus or species level, and it's meant to be considered high quality data, okay? Again, it's usually the case. Usually it's good quality data, but for every, you know, 10, you know, true blue research grade observations, there may be some that are, let's say a student just trying to do an assignment. I'm sorry to pick so much on the students, even college students, and they just tell their friend, hey, can you just confirm my identification? And the identification makes no sense. So, you know, you got to keep that in mind, that mistakes happen, and, you know, it's not perfect, right? So here are some research grade observations. I'm going to show you this one in particular because it shows like kind of how the weight of identifications can count towards pushing something towards research grade. Okay, this user, he posted it and he identified it, or no, he didn't add an identification to start, right? This is a really cool guy that I met. He worked in Crocodile Lake for a while. I don't know. I've met him through iNaturalist, right? You meet all kinds of really cool people on here. And he didn't add an identification, and this person ID'd it as Florida tree snail. It's not a Florida tree snail, right? He actually came back and must have identified it himself and said it's a master tree snail, which is, I think, an endangered species. Yeah, you see the little EN. And you could also see that the location is hidden. So a couple people came in and agreed. So even though one person is saying Florida tree snail, you can see that this is still research grade because there's a majority, right? 3 out of 4 people say master tree snail. So, you know, that's why it's under research grade, right? And this ID is known as a maverick ID because it's disagreeing. All right. So that's, you know, just a quick idea of how that, you know, majority rules works. Some people may be very frustrated by that because they feel like, hey, you know, I'm a botanist, I know what I'm talking about, and yet there are 3 people here that identified this incorrectly. So, you know, it could be frustrating. A lot of people that have expertise and really, really know what they're talking about, they get frustrated by that. But it's just a matter of getting more people like that that can, you know, override those incorrect identifications. And it's usually not really as big a problem as, you know, you might think. All right, so iNaturalist is becoming more popular in science classrooms. So we have to give students something to see, right? They are the future, getting young people interested in nature. It's healthy to be outside, observing things, and, you know, kind of going on a little scavenger hunt. They can look at the data that's out there and kind of say, oh, I want to try to find this species or this species. And you never know what interest you can spark, right? Maybe you post a photo of a dragonfly eating something and it's in someone's neighborhood, and a kid says, hey, let me look at the observations in my neighborhood, and they see it and they say, wow, that was right there down my street. I can't believe that, right? So posting on the site can spark that interest. And again, you know, learning about what's right in their neighborhood, it's giving also students skills that can transfer over to other disciplines, right? It helps organize their observations. It helps to make them realize, hey, I don't know that much, right? A lot of times people that don't have that expertise yet, they might say, oh yeah, I saw a peregrine falcon, right? And some of you may be guilty of this. I used to be guilty of this too. I would see a bird and I would say, oh yeah, that's a bald eagle and it's a turkey vulture, right? But as you start posting on the site and you start getting corrected, or you start seeing how things are identified, you start really realizing, you know, there's a lot that I do not know. So it's kind of like you're learning more, but it's making you realize that you know so little. So that's very useful for students. Okay. And, you know, learning how to manage all those search filters to ask all of these questions. It's another really great skill that people pick up using this site. And I'm not sure what that. Okay. Sorry about that. And also an eye and appreciation for nature, right? Just being able to figure out what is, wild and what isn't, what's different, right? You don't need to know the species to be able to say, I haven't seen this species yet, let me post it. This one looks different from this one. You know, that's all you need. That's how I have started off learning so much about what's out there. So the City Nature Challenge is this event that's coming up. It's going to run from April 30th to Monday, May 3rd. And last year, despite COVID, there were over 200 different locations, right? It's called the City Nature Challenge, but some of them, like the South Florida one, includes Miami-Dade, Monroe, and Broward counties. So if you're in that area and you post between April 30th and May 3rd, it's going to automatically be added to the project. So please join the project. I'm going to share the link in the chat so that you can check it out, or you can just search. If you have an account already, you can either do it through the phone, basically searching CNC SoFlo, this little hashtag here, that'll pop up the project for you and you can join. As of right now, we have, I think, 34 people on there, and we want to get that number up. And we have also Instagram and Facebook that's run by a couple other people. I'm involved with, I think, 5 or 6 other people in organizing this and trying to get more people interested. So, yeah, it'd be great if you can get on iNaturalist and help us out during this challenge. But don't only think, hey, let me use iNaturalist for the City Nature Challenge. The point is to get people, always with that eye for nature. You're going to a place you've never been before, even if it's, I don't know, in your neighborhood, you're going to a new park, keep an eye out for what weeds are there. Keep an eye out for what insects are visiting those weeds, right? You might make a very interesting discovery. You really never know what you're going to find. And the more people that use it, the more likely we are to learn a lot more about what's out there and find all of these really interesting surprises. So with that said, I'm done with my presentation. I really appreciate you listening to what I had to say. And I see there's a bunch of stuff in the chat. So let's see.
I could help you navigate through through those, Joe.
Okay, sure.
I singled out the questions from the chat.
Okay.
But firstly, out of all the iNaturalist presentations I've seen, this was definitely the most robust one. I've never gone through too much the website portion of iNaturalist, so seeing all these technical details just spurs so much motivation to get on and start making more observations.
Thank you. That's my goal here, to get everyone motivated, right? I know nobody's, you guys can't watch this presentation and have the experience that I have from using this website for so many hours, but you guys can get there very quickly if you just click around a little bit and, of course, use me to answer any questions that you have. So.
Absolutely. And I think you answered Carmen's question already in your presentation. She asks, if you post a rare protected species on iNaturalist, do they conceal the location? Maybe
Yes.
You want to give another quick word on?
Yes, that is an excellent question. And it does, if it's recognized as being either threatened, vulnerable, or endangered, then it will automatically obscure the location. I'm going to show you, I've never seen a ghost orchid. Let me think of an orchid that I have seen that's endangered. Let's see, the night blooming, right? Is that, no, what's it called? Night scented is the common name. Okay, so if I look at night scented orchid here in South Florida, if I zoom in on these, right, I forgot to mention how all the observations show up as little points. These little circular ones that don't have like a little pin, they're not the true location where it was observed. So all of these were automatically obscured, which is very convenient because we do not want people going out and poaching. Orchids are one of the main things that we have to worry about. Painted buntings is another species that unfortunately a lot of people trap down here. So all of these locations are spoofed, right? I would bet that a lot of these are somewhere in the Fakahatchee, but that's common knowledge. A lot of people know that you can see a lot of orchids in the Fakahatchee, but we don't know where in the Fakahatchee each one was observed. So it does automatically hide the location. There is another thing I need to mention about that is, if you go on a BioBlitz and you post a ton of observations, you're going to probably leave a little trail, right? So you need to remember, and this is, kind of like a little hitch in the system here with iNaturalist, is you need to remember to also take off the time that you saw that organism, right? What I always do is I always post my orchids or anything that's rare. I post that separately without a time so that nobody can figure out, I don't know how advanced these poachers are. Unfortunately, they're probably pretty advanced. But it is something to look out for, and people need to be careful when they're posting these things. But I've seen this orchid in some of the hammocks in Long Pine Key. I've posted some observations of it, but where are they? You can't see them because the location is hidden, right? So that's a very, very good question. And, obviously iNaturalist doesn't want to cause people to go out and poach things. So there is that to keep to prevent that.
Alrighty, and then Lawrence asks if you know of any elementary school projects. That this was referring to the slide where you had all the projects. Are there any for elementary schools that you know of?
Yes, there was one that ran called Lizards on the Loose. It wasn't so much where, they were looking at polygons like I did for all of the high schools. I've thought about doing something like this for elementary schools, but just because of privacy concerns, I don't think having the polygon would really be that useful. And there are also a lot more elementary schools than high schools, so that would take a lot of time. But there are all kinds of projects, and the age doesn't necessarily matter. So elementary schools can totally, participate in any number of projects, right? It's just a matter of looking around for them. You could reach out to me and I could try to find some in particular that I think, you might enjoy. And you could also create your own projects as well that, follow certain parameters. Again, feel free to reach out to me for more info, because I think, especially getting these kids young into nature is, important in protecting these areas that, some people don't realize are important natural habitats. I would be crushed emotionally if this little spot here, they did something and paved it. And it's just a little, like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like almost like a big ditch that gives water runoff. And there's so many interesting plants found there. And I'm sure people don't even know, people don't appreciate it. So, we got to get these kids into it young. All right, next
Absolutely.
question.
So Anne asks, how are the observations checked for accuracy with birds? iBird has tons of filters to screen out incorrect sightings, followed by many expert checkers to weed out wrong sightings.
Okay. So it's really just a matter. The good thing is here, since all observations need to be identified by more than one person to go to research grade, there's a huge community on iNaturalist that identifies birds. And, these people focus on all of North America or all of Florida. They'll look through all of the bird observations. So you're not going to see a whole lot that are incorrectly identified. Why? Because it's, let's say if somebody identifies something as something that makes no sense. Not that, maybe 10 minutes from then, again, birds have a really big following on iNaturalist. So a lot of people add identification. Someone will find it and correct the identification pretty quickly. Do some slip through the cracks? Yes. But, 52,000 observations, 403 different species. I'm going to only show research grade observations. So 50,000 out of the 52,000 are considered research grade. And I would bet that the majority, you could look through the species list and see if there are any that stand out as, hey, this bird, there's no way that this was observed here, right? Or this is a pet parakeet that's like literally in someone's cage or something. So it's really just the community that does that, right? By fixing the identification, or if it's somebody's pet parakeet literally in a cage, you can mark it as captive cultivated.
Alrighty, and I saw that there was one second. So Mary Benton is asking if you could talk a little bit more about photo quality, and then I have one more person that has their hand raised in the participants. So I
Okay,
guess,
that's a
two more.
great question about photo quality. Again, I take a lot of my photos just using my phone, especially if it's something, small and easily photographed, a plant. Once you start getting into birds, it can be a little tricky to get photos of birds. This picture isn't the best photo, but you can see what it is. This one, oh, this is a great example. No, I'm not trying to pick on this user, but you can see this photo is there aren't a lot of pixels in this photo. It's pretty blurry. It's not very good. But is it a common gallinule? I mean, I love birding. I spend a lot of time birding here in Florida. And I could say without any doubt whatsoever, it's a common gallinule. I'm sure the birders that are here know that it's a common gallinule, right? So, you want to do the best you can. Sometimes if the photo is really just awful, ooh, someone saw swallowtail kite today or 2 days ago. Even if the photo is awful, you could always give it a try. And like, let's say, this is, I say, no, there's no way that this is a common gallinule. I can come over here and I could say, yeah, it's a type of bird. And I can put in, save my identification as birds. And, it's going to let me disagree and say, this is not a common gallinule. This is just a bird. And then I can also come down here to this little, based on the evidence, can the community taxon still be confirmed? I could put no, it's as good as it could be as a bird. You can't say what type of bird because unfortunately the photo is not good enough. right? If, again, not this example, but another example. So, you do the best you can, and it doesn't hurt to try. Again, if you can try to get multiple angles, you never know what piece of that organism is necessary for identification, especially when you're getting into like insects and little itty bitty things. It might be like a little hook that's on the foot. So try to get different angles, and that might compensate for a photo not being the best.
Right,
And
awesome.
someone had their hand raised.
Yeah, so Jim Gross has his hand raised. Jim, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I've been a collector of sea beans for my entire life. Okay, and so you can see this common sea heart and this sea purse. But I found this on Crandon.
Oh wait, I'm not. Hold on. Let me see the video because I don't have the video showing. Sorry, I want to see. Oh, I see it. Yes.
So I have never seen this sea bean, this kind of a sea bean, before, and I could put this in iNaturalist, I guess. But do you have a category for seeds? And of course, it's got nothing to do with Florida. It's a drift seed. And
that's an excellent
from Latin America or wherever. But I would like to be identified.
Oh, Jim, it's such a great question. I have it like, I'm going to knock this one out of the park. Okay. Why? Because I think I was there with you when you picked that up, right? Wasn't that on
the, this was at Crandon. This
right.
Was on
well, I photographed it. Yes, exactly.
It.
I did. Now let me show you how great iNaturalist is just as like an organization tool. Cause I don't remember what it was called. I don't remember the date, but I remember where I was. So what I'm going to do,
I can give you the date, right? It was on our trip.
Okay, you could, but just for the point, right? We could look it up, of course. But a lot of times I'll remember, wow, I remember I saw this plant, but I don't know when it was. I don't know what it was. So let me find out where, I know where it was. So I'm going to come over here to maps, and I don't have the best memory. So especially, regarding experiences but a lot of times I'll remember if I saw something new where I was. So these are all of my observations in, the world. I'm going to zoom into Crandon because I know it was at Crandon. And I remember it was somewhere along kind of like the North Beach here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put redo search and map area. So I'm still looking at 392 observations, but I'm going to filter for plants because I know it was a type of plant. Okay, now I'm down to 86 observations. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll through my observations until I find it. There it is. Right? You see it right here. It's a fish. The fish poison tree, right? And I, if I didn't remember the date and I had no way to look, here it was. I posted it. We saw it on January 10th. I posted it on January 11th. And, I had like a little note here explaining where I was. I'm trying to promote the Florida Native Plant Society, right? If someone runs into my observation. And all I could say was, I know that this is some type of flowering plant. That's all I could say from that. I had no clue, right? And this person came in and said, fish poison tree. And, look, she used her Florida's Living Beaches guide and added an identification. I had 2 other people come in and confirm. And the other thing that's really cool is there's a project, right? I didn't know about the project. I didn't add it myself. Yeah. Someone added it to the project, drift seeds and sea beans. And I'm going to open up that project now.
Yeah, I can't read that.
Okay, you have a guide too.
Well, I have the World Guide to Tropical Drift Seeds and Fruits by Charles Gunn and John Dennis. It's pretty old, but it really catalogs drift seeds very well.
Nice. I saw not that long ago a presentation by the Florida Trails Association. They had a presentation, the Big Cypress chapter. But yeah, so I posted it here. Now it's part of this group. You can, if you want to know what people have seen in Miami-Dade, right? This is showing me the whole world, right? I'm going to show you where these observations are. They should all be coastal, right? Hopefully nobody's posting a drift seed. This one, I don't know. Maybe this showed up in a map. No, this is probably a mistake. I don't think I got there through a river or anything. The one that's in the middle of Brazil and Brasilia. Okay. But let me zoom in really quick just to show you guys again how awesome this tool is. And I want to see what people have seen so far in this area. And I'm going to hit grid. And I can see all the ones that people have posted so far. And, again, look, mangrove seeds, right? I bet, let's see if mangrove seed is the most common one. It is, right? If I go to species again, it's breaking it down for me, showing the most common one. So look, the one that you found, that's the only fish poison tree posted in this area to iNaturalist. You see, it only says 1 observation. Right. So it's just really, really, really convenient. You can get more into this and kind of start looking at seasonal patterns of when people are finding them. But there's not a lot of data yet, right? Because not a lot of people use this. There's only 51 in this area. If you want to expand to Florida, you can expand to Florida. All right. So that was an awesome question. Just to highlight, you could do what I've been showing you guys for everything, for anything. The data may not be there sometimes, but there are 670 in all of Florida, and you can kind of go through and see which ones are the most common. Okay, there's so many little specific things you could look at, and it's all there. It's really an incredible tool.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Do I have any more questions? I know it's 9:02. I don't know if we want to cut it there.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there are any more coming in,
Elizabeth.
but like you just said a second ago. Oh, sorry, what?
I see Elizabeth raising her hand.
Oh, go ahead, Elizabeth, if you have a question.
Oh, no, I'm good. I was going to tell you, what that seed was, but you already got it.
Oh, you recognized it already.
Well, I pulled out that book, the same book you mentioned.
Oh, the
really
same
quickly.
book.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't want anybody to think, by the way, having a book, I mean, I kind of tried to show you guys, I set up like my wife was making fun of my little shrine of books that I put behind me. I do use them, don't only think iNaturalist is not the answer to everything. I don't want anybody to think that that's what I think. There's the same book that the person cited. But it's just great having that resource and being able to check in and learn from it. So.
Well, Joe, if all the comments that people have been leaving throughout this entire presentation are any indication, you really did knock this out of the park. Really awesome, in-depth conversation, and thanks so much for being here and teaching everyone about this resource and just how useful it is. Not just for exploring Florida, but really the entire world. This could be a really great tool in spurring the kind of conservation research.
Oh yeah.
I
mean, you're going to travel somewhere, find out what you're going to see, find out what their lawn weeds are, find out what plants, what fungi. It's, so maybe the data's not there and you're going to be the first one to post it. You're going to help someone else out. So it's really, I hope you guys see, I mean, let me show you really quick how many observations I've added so you can see how crazy I am about the site. Again, I don't want you guys I don't think it's everything, but I really enjoy it. I've added 58,000. I've gotten more into identifying lately, because I realized, hey, I'm taking a lot from the site, but I want to give back to what I can. And a lot of those identifications are just little, oh, this is a dicot. I don't know what type it is, but I'm classifying it for the real experts, So it's really fantastic site. So.
Very awesome, Joe. We need hundreds of people like you, honestly.
Hopefully some of you will join me, please.
Absolutely. Well, thanks a lot, Joe, for your presentation. Again, really great, and thank you guys all for joining us today. Yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of your evening, and I hope you guys take on iNaturalist and start using it yourselves.
Yes, I hope so too. All right, thank you, everyone. Should I put my email one more time? I think I posted it in the chat at the beginning.
Yeah, sure. If you want, yeah.
I'll post it one more time. Again, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'm sure you all can see how enthusiastic I am about the site, and any questions that you have, I will walk you through it. I promise. I don't know if I'm going to regret saying this, but I really will help you guys out very happily. Oh, wait, I only sent that to Lawrence. Let me see if I can send it to everyone. Wait a minute. Sorry, what am I doing? jmont034@fiu.edu. There you go. That is my email. All right.
All right. Yeah, and if anyone wants to copy it, I'll be the last one to click off this meeting. So feel free to take a moment.
Okay. One more thing. I can email you this PowerPoint if you want to use it. If you want to look through it more, carefully. By all means, I'm happy to send it to you through email or any other way. And, if you want me to give this talk to anyone that I'm happy to do it. Okay. So.
And the presentation will also be on our YouTube page if you want to catch it again or refer to someone who wasn't able to attend. All righty. Thanks again, Joe.
All right.
Keep in touch. I hope to see you soon.
All right. Yes. See you all soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Well, good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thanks, Elizabeth.
So, Joe, you said you're at Southwest?
Yes, I'm at Southwest.
Okay. Hey, well, you know what? it doesn't matter what you teach. You can turn anything into the science lesson. I mean, I'm a mathematics and statistics teacher, and we've got an arboretum and all sorts of projects and shade houses and stuff going on at school. But just ask for forgiveness. Don't ask for permission. You know.
Yeah, I've heard that. I do that sometimes with some of my observations. You'll be like, "Is that trespassing?" Oh,
Yeah.
I don't do that so much
Hey,
with EO anymore, though. So,
but seriously, in the schools, your administrators, if they're any way forward thinking at all, will appreciate original kind of out of the box stuff, especially if it applies to STEM, because everybody wants to get this STEM designation, and it's just go with it, and your passion will rub off on the kids, and when that rubs off on the kids take it over and gets out of control. Yeah.
yeah.
The all those observations from our school, most of those were related to Fairchild challenges, with James Stroud.
Right. The lizards on
I
the
think
loose.
we did that for
Exactly.
5 years
Yeah.
with the lizards on the loose. Yeah, and so the amount of data that they gathered, even with the inaccuracies, was amazing, and they made loads of discoveries just based on